A warm welcome from me. My name's Adityabandhu. So what we'll do a bit of meditation in this first half, quite a chunk. So we'll do the mindfulness of breathing, and I'll lead us into that. But most of it we'll just do with the bells. But I'll lead us into it, and then we can keep on going how we've been going so far, which is remembering that we're doing the challenge, reflecting back on our week, on things that we said last week, and if we weren't here last week, just exploring the meditation that we do now. So we'll do a bit of talking after the meditation. We'll get into pairs, and then we might meditate a little bit more after as well. And then the second half, we'll hear from Prajnamanas. Come in, seats there as well. Yes, in the second half, we'll hear from Prajnamanas on karma, and I won't say anything else from that. Prajnamanas will do that. Okay, so let's start. Let's before we meditate, let's salute the shrine. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Buddhaya. Namo Dharmaya. Namo Dharmaya. Namo Sanghaya. Namo Sanghaya. Namo Namah. Namo Namah. Okey-doke. So we can just set ourselves up for meditation, and we'll do about half an hour of the mindfulness of breathing, 30 minutes. So you're just arriving. We can just get a sense of our weight, all of our weight just dropping into the ground. So through the cushions or through the chair. And with that, relaxing or letting go of any gripping in the legs. So any gripping in the thighs, just letting go. In the calves, you can imagine your legs melting into the ground. And the same with your sitting bones, your buttocks. Just relaxing any holding on. And in your upper body, you can just open up your chest. Let your shoulders drop down away from your ears. So you're upright. And just like with the legs, relaxing any gripping in the arms, particularly in the forearms or in the biceps. And letting your cushion or your lap just take the weight of your arms. And finally, relaxing the face. So just letting your lips drop. No need to hold on to the face. Allowing your brows to unfurrow. and the eyes behind the eyelids to soften. And just letting the face take its natural shape. And we'll go into a period of the mindfulness of breathing. So for the last few moments, just dropping any effort that you've been making and just sitting. Letting go of the practice. Good. So, just a reminder, so last week what we did, or what we took home if you were here, was to sort of reflect on change, or the changingness of our experience. And we did that in the context of practice. So we did a short practice at the end of last week, just reflecting on, or just feeling the changingness of sensations, sounds, and something else. Anyone remember what the other thing was?
Thoughts.
No, what thoughts? Changeability of things. There's a genuine question. I actually don't. The breath. Thank you, Prajnamanas. So that was our home practice. So we can just what we'll do is we'll go into groups, not for very long, or pairs, and we can just say how that was in the week if we did that practice, and maybe any effects that we notice that practice having throughout the week. If we didn't do the practice or we weren't here, we can just, again, go into pairs, introduce yourself, say your name, and just talk about how this practice was, how this mindfulness of breathing was. And also you can also talk about the effects it had, maybe over the half an hour. If that was obvious, yeah. So we'll do that for maybe 6 minutes or so. Yeah, so just turn to someone and go from there. Yeah, and if you're online, just write it down. One of the two, either how it was, how this practice was, or how you found the home practice and were you able to reflect on what impact it had on your week. I won't have very long to the plenary. So we're about halfway through. If you need to, swap over now. Yeah, we can go back now to our spots. I mean, we don't have very long, but maybe we could hear from one or two. It can be either about the home practice or about how this particular meditation was. You can just say it.
Yeah, basically it's for me, that's what we was discussing here. In home, if I tried many times, if I sit for meditation, hardly for 5 minutes my mind will be, it's hard to control to sit on this one, then I stop. So here, even if we sit for half an hour, it's like because of maybe energy is here or something, I don't know.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
For me, half an hour, how it goes, I don't notice.
Yeah.
And my mind will be within my breathing and myself. Hardly couple of times it goes here and there, but I bring back again. But in home, in 5 minutes, it goes 1,000 times here and there. But here, in half an hour, maybe it goes 5-10 times.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
I quickly bring back.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
It's good here.
Yeah, good.
Because like I said, because of the mass, I think energy creates here. Energy creates here. That energy is like giving more to the breathing and this one. That's what I feel.
And if you come here more and more, I suppose you will also get distracted.
Yeah.
All of that will come. I mean, I live here, so I come here every day and meditate, and I still get the
energy.
I get the energy, but also my whole. Anyway, I do get distracted as well. It's a good point. And because we are kind of practicing together, and it has a positive effect. But it might be hard to notice, but we'll notice it more in meditation. So it's good observation. Maybe one more quick one. Yeah.
I've been meditating in the morning. It's easier first in the morning. Much more difficult late in the day.
Right.
Back before I go to sleep. I always tell myself I'm going to meditate before I go to sleep, but
Right.
it never happens. But in the morning,
It's easier.
Concentrate on this and meditate on this as good as I do here. What I have noticed that it's also helping in terms of like you were talking a theme last week, like impermanence. I think to not have as much of the negative conversations coming in
Right.
on a daily basis. So maybe things I was unhappy about or regret about from the past that would have come up and become a full conversation.
Yeah,
start,
yeah,
so
yeah.
just kind of stop. So I'm noticing that effect.
Right. I mean, it might be an obvious question, but do you know what you're doing differently now, so that things stop those negative?
I think I'm not. I just think it's because every morning I meditate every morning.
Right.
And I'm thinking about things and kind of see them a bit more.
Right.
Past events a bit more from two perspectives, not just mine.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
So I think I'm kind of more or less, I wouldn't say I'm forgiving, or I'm just not seeing things as hard, fast, good and bad.
Yes. Yeah. Great. Yeah. Yeah. It's like if you go back to meditation and keep looking at your mind, we don't just go into automatic pilot of reacting to negative feelings or something. We keep coming back every day. We can actually see things with a bigger perspective, and maybe even kind of empathize with others or whatever. But so it's a very positive habit. So it sounds good. Sounds really positive. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that's all we have time for the first half. In the second half we'll hear from Prajnamanas. So we'll just go next door and have tea. Okay.
Good. So good evening from me as well. Yeah, I'm Prajnamanas, and hello if you're tuning in online. Just to let you know, if you're tuning in, what I mean is, if you're just turning up for the first time this evening, we're doing this thing called the Meditation Challenge. In this room, for people who know the practices, that's meant we're going through a traditional list called the 4 reminders, which are basically reasons to practice now. They're reasons that we need to meditate and deepen our minds, but not when we retire and not next week. They're reasons to crack on with it now. The first one was that this human birth is a precious opportunity. There's all sorts of reasons that life is valuable or precious, but for a Buddhist, it's that you can use your human life to grow and deepen the mind and ultimately become enlightened, i.e. achieve what the Buddha achieved. The second is the sort of the slightly more challenging context. It starts quite bright. It's not like it goes dark after that, but it goes sobering with death and impermanence. The fact that whatever we do, whatever life we've had, it's finite, it will end. And our experience is always changing. You can see these, and I'll build in a third tonight. I'll come to it later. I wanted to do something practical first, but you'll see that these actually continue kind of rounding out one sort of picture, one sphere of, I was going to say beauty actually. It's not just reasoning, it's a kind of sphere of depth, which if we recognise it will motivate us to do, well, like I say, deepen the mind. You've already been told that tonight's presentation is on karma. But without saying more about that, I'm going to get to do an exercise now. I didn't know who's going to talk about this, but it's going to build very much on the announcement you just heard. This will involve, in a moment, thinking of something you've done recently that you think was a bit mean or ungenerous or unkind. The frowns cross the faces. Okay, but don't worry, because after that we'll be thinking of something unselfish or more aware of others or generous that you did. Okay. But first of all, something probably the first thing that comes to mind is appropriate. Yeah, big, small, doesn't matter. Kind of regrettable. Even if you just missed an opportunity to act well. But don't make it too sort of worthy. It's like if you're a bit snappy with someone the other day and you think it probably affected them a little bit, that's a perfect example. Yeah. So be bringing that to mind now. What we'll do is you can sit quietly and close your eyes. You could get into meditation posture or roughly if you want. You can just sit comfortably as well, whatever you like. But we'll do it with the eyes closed, and I'll just guide a little bit of reflection. And this could be an act of body, speech, or mind. So you can even practice this with the thought that you had, if you like. Okay. So be bringing that to mind, and the first thing to do, as you recall this act, or this event, is ask yourself what you feel in the body as you recall it. So just bodily sensation as you mentally re-inhabit this action. So there's no right or wrong answer, just whatever you feel in the body as you recall this act. And just note a few things mentally. And now we'll move on to the emotional tone of this a bit more by asking, how do I feel about myself as this act is in my mind? What sort of version of me do I experience? And then thirdly, how do I feel towards the world at large? Or what sort of world do I experience? So what is my world like as I recall this action? Okay, now keeping the stillness, you just relax and see if you can recall those three experiences or qualities. Okay, and you can open your eyes now. So let's hear back a little bit about that, starting with the physical experience. If you're happy to say, 2 or 3 of you, what you felt as you recall this mean or ungenerous act? And if you're online, you could type in the chat and Liam can tell me. Yep.
I felt resistance.
Okay, so how did that manifest physically? When you say resistance?
Well, it's very obvious. Look at me, guys.
Okay.
I was like this.
Right, folded arms, yeah.
Yeah. Firstly, I couldn't even recall one. Oh my gosh, I feel very selfish.
Well, anyway, that's a good start. Kind of, I think you're talking about tension, aren't you? Folded arms and resistance. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. What else? Yeah.
I would say like in the stomach, just kind of feel tension.
Yeah. Tension in the stomach.
Tension in the stomach, like kind of
Clenched, did you say? Yeah.
Stomach, and that affects digestion.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. Yeah. Okay, so like clenching or tension in the belly. Yeah. Let's have one more, Tom.
It's very much in my head.
Yeah.
Not my body.
You could feel that, because when we say in the head, you could feel that you were you? Were there sensations in the head? Is that what you mean?
Yeah, when I'm sat in the meditation posture,
Mm.
I feel my whole body
Yeah.
automatically.
Mm.
I just felt I was up in my head.
Okay. Thank you. They all sound like experiences of contraction of some sort. Yeah. So let's move on to the second one. How you felt about yourself. It's very creative, by the way. Thanks for all your answers. Generous of you to say.
Separate. Like
Separate.
separation.
Yeah. Yeah. From.
What's going on around me completely, I guess.
Kind of isolated.
Yeah, dissociated.
Okay. Separate. Dissociated. Thanks, Ruben.
I kind of doubled down on myself, almost kind of, just really kind of.
What sort of self was that, would you say?
It was quite a tight one, just kind of hunkered, held on to me more.
Right. Okay, good. Yeah, so that's sounds like a sort of the physical aspect that we've been discussing, slightly more sort of personal psychological, doesn't it? You get, it's that slightly more metaphorical than just the hunkered, you said. That's evocative. Yeah. Thank you. More like hunkered down. Yeah.
Like a weird mixture of shame and pity.
Wow.
Like
Yeah.
Pity for like what, when you think about it, is a bit of a childlike sort of action that you take, so you sort of pity the version of you that's a bit childlike, and then shame for sort of being the one that allowed that childlike behaviour to happen.
Okay. That's quite a strong experience, isn't it?
Yeah, it wasn't very strong action, but
Yeah.
I'm making.
Ah, right. Well, that's even more interesting in a way. The action wasn't that remarkable, maybe, but you've had quite a strong emotional response, it sounds like, or at least the language you're using about it's.
Yeah, I take your point. I think I'm trying to make as much of it as I can to say, so there's something to talk about, if that makes sense. Do you know
Right,
what I mean?
now.
Right now.
Yeah.
Making up far more than it actually was, just to say something about it. Because I just, anyway.
I think I know what you mean. Yeah. Thank you. So there's one online.
Yeah, feelings of being judgmental.
Being judgmental.
Yeah, as well as comments about physical tension.
Yeah, okay. Feelings of being judgmental. So how we feel towards ourselves, that must be to do with judging ourselves, that person's self. Yeah, okay. Judgmental, yeah, that's not pleasant, is it? Good. So the third one, what sort of world we experience?
This was kind of weird because when you first said, like, think of the world, like, I actually went straight to, like, beautiful, like, beauty.
Okay.
And then I felt, like, after some time of seeing beauty, then I felt an emotional contraction, as if it was being threatened. So I actually had, like, two worlds in my head. Like, one that felt kind of open and, like, beautiful. And then I had sort of later on that emotional contraction was coming in. And I thought that was interesting.
And the world was less beautiful or just under threat,
No,
did you say?
under threat, or even that there was 2 possibilities there for me, and I was like sort of toying between the 2.
Yeah, thank you. So a beautiful world under threat. That's what I've taken from that. Thank you. Good, thanks very much. So we'll keep cracking on because there's the other side to get through. So be conjuring in your mind something kind or generous you did. If you can't think of anything, just lower the bar. Really. Because actually I think, as in your example, that something that seems slight to you, you can get into this exercise. Yeah. Okay. So closing your eyes again and sitting comfortably. So this is just an act, however big or small, that you're pleased with recently. The sort of act you'd like to receive from someone else. Okay, so recalling this act, you can just ask yourself, how do I feel in the body? So quite sort of literal, immediate, physical sensations. And then how do you feel about yourself? So keep the act in mind, its atmosphere or the scene, the feeling of it. And what sort of version of you are you experiencing? And lastly, what sort of world is it out there when you're acting in this way? And when you've got some sort of response on that third one, whatever it is, you can just relax again. See if you can briefly recall all 3 responses. Okay, and bringing that to a close and opening your eyes again. Okay, so let's just have 1 or 2 responses for each of those 3, including from online, You might have to type fast because I think there's a 30-second delay. We've got one already. They did type
Sarah
fast.
says that she feels relaxed and happy and positive, but that also she's basically glad to have helped somebody. Feeling glad to have helped somebody.
Okay, that's probably the second one, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, anything from the first level, the body? Perhaps I wasn't clear enough about that.
We're feeling relaxed and happy and positive.
That's even a little bit beyond the body, isn't it? It's good, very good to hear. Yeah, thank you. What about the body sense? Yeah.
Oh, actually, because I did my regrettable thing at about 5 p.m. before coming to this class, so I was feeling it already.
Okay.
But I was enjoying, having done the thinking about things that I'd done good, has made me feel better, actually.
Okay.
I was feeling already the guilty feeling anyway coming to the class.
Okay.
Kind of helpful cure.
Okay.
So the body, in the body, less, it was like felt less tight and then like warm, like
Less tight and warm.
like when you're
Great.
not feeling bad.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Cure.
Good. Yeah.
I think like I can't say the word subtle.
Subtle.
No. Like when you're bendy.
Supple.
Supple.
You felt more supple.
I felt supple.
Great.
It all felt like, you know.
Yeah. It is quite evocative as well, isn't it? Yeah. Thank you. And probably a facet of feeling more relaxed as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because you are more supple when you're more
feeling
relaxed.
more authentically you, and then feeling connected to your body because of that. And
Okay.
sort of feeling flexible.
Good. One more for the physical sense. Slightly difficult to stick to, isn't it? Because it actually grows out into something more metaphorical almost immediately, but we can do the exercise.
I almost felt more physically open.
Yeah. There you are. That's it's quasi-imaginative still, isn't it? It probably, well, I don't know my biology well enough, but something is relaxing, isn't it? What I had, I started in this posture, which is what I tend to do when I'm sitting up here, and I suddenly realised I didn't want my fingers interlocked, so I let my arms hang slack. And then I thought, golly, I'd quite like to get into meditation postures. It's feeling so relaxed, I didn't want to rustle around, but same sort of thing. Everything distends a bit and lets go, and it is a sort of opening up. So anyway, we're shading into the second level now, aren't we? So about yourself, what sort of self you experience? Let's just get one or two.
I would say unite as opposed as to resentful. In the first exercise, I felt
Right.
this kind of separation.
Okay.
Be separated from the word, and the second very much.
Right. Unified?
Yes.
Something like that? Yeah. Brilliant. Great. Thank you.
I'd say it's like harmonious.
Harmonious. Yeah.
Like there's a less as opposed to combative.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Thank you. Mine was more creative. I experienced a much more creative version of myself, which has sort of has possibilities open out in front of it, which is then the world bit, if you see what I mean. I also noticed I feel more likeable to myself, which might sound slightly cheap, but actually it helps us, is a version of myself I like much, much more. Self-dislike is very hampering, can come in easily and subtly and will really hamper our efforts. It makes everything a bit more complicated. Which one are we on? Let's do the world one.
I felt the world became really safe, like there was a sense of safety. I thought that was an interesting contrast from the previous one, which
The threat.
was a beautiful world
Under
under threat.
yeah.
And then I just felt safe.
And
And I didn't necessarily think of like a beautiful world, it was just that main thing, just safe. It's like the most important.
Great. What quite often happens in this last stage, I suppose we've done 6 stages of reflection, is it becomes a world with possibilities in it, rather than a cramped one. My world one in the first exercise was obsessive or narrow. Like there's only one tiny bit of it I'm interested in, which is this slightly conflictive interaction that I was picturing, which the mind will just keep coming back to, and which will become the mind's world, if you see what I mean. This one conversation, even this one person, obsession is like that, isn't it? The world shrinks right down to this little thing you don't like. Or actually, underneath that, this little act we're not proud of. probably a lot of our aversion, well, I don't know how much of it actually, but at least some of it is probably our conscience nagging us. It's just we don't listen to it in quite the right way. Anyway, thank you very much for all of that. That was, well, I feel quite affected by doing that with you all, actually. And I think it has demonstrated what, rather neatly, Metta Bhavana was talking about in the break, which is that we create our world, which, if you need a really portable translation for it, is essentially what karma means. To go into that just a little bit more, karma itself means action, specifically willed action. Yeah. And the fruit of that, the tradition calls karma vipaka. Vipaka just means fruit. So it means fruit of willed action. You know how quite often people say, I don't know, if a brick falls on your head or something. I don't suppose that happens very often, but anyway. People are tempted to say, that's my karma. Actually, if you were being really pedantic, that would be your karma vipaka. The karma would be whatever action you performed that made that more likely. Anyway, like walking under a pile of bricks. I don't know. We'll leave that example. But karma means willed action. Yeah. The willed part of that's important because it's to do with volitional impulses, and those originate in the mind. Yeah. So in Metta Bhavana's train example, which I think is very, very good, isn't it? But amazing how much people are suddenly in your way when you're late. That impatience is a volition in the mind. But as he was explaining, it causes you to literally experience the world, literally experience a different world. Yeah. My extended reflection about the tube station is that you've been both people. You know what I mean? They're both super familiar, but you're either really in one or really in the other. You know if somebody kind of crashes past you and sort of sneaks in a little frown as they do it, because you stop for 4 seconds to look at the map and be like, am I going northbound or am I going southbound? And you're in like masses of trouble for it already. You think, jeepers, like, come on. I'm a person in the train station too. But you've slightly probably also been that person who thinks, well, I do know which way I'm going, you know, sort of, you're trying to kind of squeeze out a little bit of that irritated volition as you go past. And you're identifying with only one at a time. But isn't it silly how you've created both worlds? Anyway, the willed action is what you do on the basis of that mental state. And the fruit of the willed action is what we were just exploring now. So in that exercise, the karma is the thing that you did. Well, in all situations, the karma is the act that you called to mind. Yeah? The karma vipaka is what you were tasting as we sat here doing the exercise. And that you find pretty well every time is that on the basis of an unaware or selfish act, you will experience unpleasant consequences for yourself and for the world. And on the basis of an act that is more unselfish and more aware, the reverse will happen. You will experience, and it's not just that it's positive, it's that it's also pleasant. Yeah, the body relaxes, you feel like a much more capable version of yourself, and that the world basically contains possibilities. And not just for you also, it's like the mind opens out and starts to re-include others again. You think the world is multiple in its sort of avenues of action, and those I will be able to influence those, but it involves everybody else as well, not just my obsessions. So the law of karma states that willed actions lead to consequences appropriate to the volitional impulse that they were based on. That's a bit of a mouthful, but that's pretty good, isn't it? One more important thing. Both of these make the acts of that kind more likely in the future. Yeah. So if you feel tight, you're more likely to act in a tight way. Yeah. And the consequences will be redoubled. So this is the really sobering bit. What Buddhism calls your unskillful impulses will actually get reinforced. You see this, don't you? I mean, any downward spiral. I don't know. In the movie, it's the person who's doing all the drinking and gambling. I mean, we also do it during a day, don't we? Like, I don't know, The other day I actually did have a kind of got out of bed on the wrong side type day. I've almost never had them, but I really, that seemed to be the explanation. Like, things were just not going my way. And it can seem to actually get worse. You don't like something, then you bang your knee, then you have a conversation that's really not very good, and you think, you just get more and more troubled, you know. So unskillful actions get reinforced. The reverse is also true. If you basically experience yourself as creative, you are more likely to do something more creative tomorrow or later today. Could even just be in little bits. It's more likely to sort of let go a bit of that pride and think, actually, that other person, they've really given to me, and I've been a little bit superior or critical of them or something. Maybe you don't get as far as speaking it out and going into it all, but you have a little moment in yourself where you think, actually, I really owe them something. Yep. And the mind just starts to soften in that way. It can even go back down to the bodily level and cause you to do things like sleep better, if you've got a clear conscience. So, where do we go with all this? The law of karma is saying that the world might not be as I like it. It's reconciling these two truths. The world is probably not exactly as I like it. Yeah, it's not of my design. Things happen that I don't want or don't like. And yet somehow I'm a completely morally responsible agent in it. Yeah. They're not actually contradictory, but they're quite hard to hold in mind at the same time. Because we can either overplay our influence and believe that we're in control and then get angry when things don't go our way because it clashes with that belief, or feel that we're basically a victim of circumstances and what can you do, life just happens to you. Yeah. But those are sort of extremes that you've got to somehow stay between and slightly above by making good use of the law of karma, which basically you're basically working with this law, noticing that your skillful impulses reinforce more of the same, your unskillful impulses do as well. Weirdly, it doesn't mean that you're either going to hell or going to heaven, if you sort of mean. You don't only spiral downwards on the basis of unskillful and only spiral up on the basis of skillful. It's slightly mysterious as well. On the other hand, it's quite regular. Do this exercise any time, and you'll find little variations, and you might query little bits of it, but it will basically deliver the same message every time. So what we do with our meditation practice is get more familiar with the fact that we're a morally responsible agent. We workshop directly what we've just looked at indirectly, i.e. we see, if I influence and change my mental states, the world looks different. And you can experience this in a single meditation. That's the really, really good bit. From the point of view of the world that doesn't meditate, it's like the well-kept secret, if you like. You do a meditation, it's not just that you become calmer, for example. You come out, and the world has more possibilities in it, that it might include calmness. But let's say you go into your next interaction in a more skillful state, you'll draw out from your friend more of their potential. It's really hard to hold because it's inspiring and really sobering, like a lot of the Dharma. What we don't like in other people is so often that's the maximum we've managed to evoke from them. You see what I mean? And not entirely as well. There's no kind of hard and fast rule here, but I've had experiences of rubbing along with my friends in the community. I don't know if I'm doing my best actually, but I sort of try at least some of the time and try to be more skillful and do my Buddhist practice, all that. If somebody more experienced comes into the same situation, let's say our president Subhuti, who's just been past 50 years in the order, a friend to our centre, he sometimes comes to stay in our community, visits the centre, spends time around the same people, the joy that he draws out of them, I think, I wasn't doing that. I wasn't bringing out of the people around me that much of their potential and inspiration and confidence in themselves. I wouldn't sort of particularly expect myself to, if you like, but it shows what the potential is. And that reminds me, what I was experiencing of the people around me is not a given from the world. As Metta Bhavana was saying, it's that the self and the world are co-arising. Yeah. It doesn't mean I also, with a sort of magic wand in my mind, just kind of bring the world into being. It's that there's a creative interaction going on all the time. And karma is basically how you use this skillfully. Yeah, quick questions, all right?
It sort of, to follow that through, it sort of implies that you can make the people around you happy by thinking that they're happy. Is that right?
No, I wouldn't say you make them happy. No, I would say that if you are in a creative state, for example, you take an interest in how somebody else is, with good timing and with a sincerely other-regarding type of attention, they will open up to you more.
Yeah.
You will then experience a more creative version of them, and the same thing will keep happening until we fall out of that spiral and something unskillful happens again, if you see what I mean. But I don't mean you're making others happy. I mean that, and when I say drawing out, maybe that's the phrase we're tripping up on. Yeah. I mean that.
It's like a domino effect.
Well, until the dominoes stop falling over, like I say, but in moment to moment it might be. Let's put it the other way around. My Dharma friends who are more experienced than me have caused me to experience much more of my potential than I could have on my own. Yeah? They have drawn forth from me more self-confidence, probably more honesty as well. It helped me be a little bit more real than I was when I first came along and all that sort of thing. That's what I mean by they've drawn that out of me. But they've done that with skillful attention of their own, yeah, which on their part is karmically positive. Yeah. But it also means that if I look at more experienced Buddhists who've been in this game years and years, I can see that they are living in a more inspired world. That's the really key point. I don't mean that they're getting deluded about how everything's actually really good. I mean they're experiencing more, at least, of the creative possibilities that exist in reality. Yeah, they're seeing that more. Since we're on this, one of the key things there, I think, is to do with seeing people's potential. This I don't know. This is slightly straying beyond karma now, but what we most want from others, school teachers you really remember and you're really grateful to. Usually what that's a story of is them seeing your potential rather than only the actual. Yeah. So I often tell the story of my cello teacher who we hardly ever got as far as actually playing the cello because she was so good at drawing out young people and being interested in them and so sort of joyful about life, even though she was in her 60s and had a disorder that meant she was in the British Symphony Orchestra, but she'd had to stop because of a degenerative thing in her hands. So joyful and so actually interested in young people. I don't know, an awkward 15-year-old like any other, but you really felt like more than that when you were around her. We all really, really need that. So seeing people's potential is one of the big favours we can do people. It's not just something we can switch on and off. We've got to get better at it and become more and more subtle in it. But if we're saying, maybe this is today's working example, if we create our world, you could query that and philosophise, make it more complicated, but let's just say for now we create our world. What the world will generally mean is others. Okay? So the attitude we take to others is really key. And just to reiterate, it doesn't mean we only see the good in them. But it probably means we really, really believe in the good of them. Even if we can only see a few crumbs of that, you really make sure to see that and value it, help them value it, and draw it out more and allow it to grow. Yeah. We've all been I imagine, we've all been on the receiving end of it. The task is to turn it around and start really giving that. Yeah.
Can you repeat the last sentence?
Golly, I can't remember.
Not just seeing the good in them, but...
Oh, yeah.
So we're not trying to only see the good.
We're not just seeing the good. Yeah. Well, I suppose I mean that you don't become blind to the unskillful in other people, But what your attention dwells on, what you really value, and what you emphasize is very relevant, including ethically. So what I mean there is, a good Dharma friend can see your unskillful tendencies, of course, but they don't go on about them. They might try to skillfully point them out because we need to become more aware of ourselves and we need the help of our friends to do that. Yeah? But one of their main jobs is to spot the little sparks of skillfulness and value, generosity, courage, and rejoice in those, and allow us to, in a skillful way, identify more with that side of ourselves so that we let it grow and experience it more, basically. Yeah. Okay. There's so much more to say that I haven't had time to say, but I think we better, in a moment, do some meditation. What we'll do is the Metta Bhavana. We'll do 3 stages. Don't set up for meditation just yet, I'll just describe it a little bit. So we'll do 3 stages, which are the self, the good friend, and all beings, yeah, or however you want to expand it in that, what's usually the 5th stage. And you can do one of 2 things. You can ask yourself, what mind do I want to cultivate towards these people? Or you could say, what have these people, and that includes yourself when you're doing yourself, done for me that has benefited me? Yeah. And look out for the feeling of that, the change and the creativity especially. Does that make sense as a steer? Or shall I say a bit more about that? I think the main thing is the first one. What mind do I want towards myself? So see the exercise above. What mind do I want to cultivate towards my friend? It's to do with it being 2 directions. You know, what will I then experience of them? What do I see of them when I think of them generously, or I imagine them being really happy? What mind do I want to cultivate towards them, and what mind have they cultivated towards me that's helped me, that's been generous? Yeah. I'll remind you of that as we go through. So self, friend, all beings. So make sure that you've got the cushions you need and so on. And I'll just remind us of these 3 stages and ring a bell at the end. So you can settle into meditation however you need to, feeling the weight of the body. Or if you like, conjuring that relaxed, skillful state we felt in the second part of the reflection exercise. Perhaps even visit that version of yourself you experienced on the basis of the kind or generous act. And see if you can inhabit again what that feels like. As a form of the first stage of the Metta Bhavana. Or you can just simply sit and wish yourself well. Which is in itself a skillful impulse worth valuing. And now bringing the good friend to mind. And keeping an eye on what sort of mind and what sort of heart we want to cultivate towards them. So we can just remember here that we are responsible for what sort of mind we're cultivating towards the friend. And now, as a final stage, you can recall yourself and your friend and start bringing more and more people in. So opening out the mind to others. Offering ourselves even. So with the type of mind we cultivate to others, we are creating our world. Good, so that's pretty much all there's time for. I just remembered one more thing I wanted to say, and I've remembered it because personally I'm feeling quite hot, and that is that quite soon we're trying to make some improvements to the centre that are quite badly needed, i.e. air conditioning in here. If you've been here in July or August in a really hot summer, you'll know it gets really sweltering. We're trying to do air conditioning. We're trying to do other things as well. The good ship LBC is an old ship and needs quite a lot of tweaks. We've got work coming up, so we're asking for your help during the challenge. We're trying to raise £30,000. That's aircon plus a few other bits. But I gather it's quite complicated getting it in and out of the old Victorian building. Adityabandhu is one of our caretakers. He can tell you all about that. So we're really asking for your help. We're actually asking if you might give £100 for the whole of the challenge. We're going to come back to this again next week. You could even think about it during the week. So if you can dig deep into your pockets and give that much, we really appreciate it. Anything less that you can give, of course, we appreciate too. So there'll be Paris, I think, will have a donation gadget at the door on your way out. You could consider doing that. What you're doing basically is giving to others in exactly the same position as you. So basically, if the way to think of it is, if you benefit from coming to the LBC and you want that for others, to give some money to keep that possible, keep making that possible for more and more people. As in the fifth stage, the Metta Bhavana, people that you'll never meet who you'd like to receive benefits. There's other ways to give as well if you can't give money, but we'll perhaps talk about that another time. At the moment, we're particularly hoping to raise 30,000. Last time I checked, we were 12,000. We'd raised 12 out of 30, so we're doing really quite well. So thank you very, very much if you've already given. That's how the progress for our fundraising. We've got a week and a half left, something like that, to make the rest of £30,000. So if you can help, we really, really appreciate it. And like I say, you're giving to people you may never meet, but they're in exactly the same position as you. So if you can give, please do. Yeah. And thank you if you've already given. Good. So, could you put a donation link in the chat? You've done it, of course you have. Okay, great. Thank you for those of you online. Okay, so that's it. See you next week. Come back for completion of the sequence by Adityabandhu.